Lesson 22, David in Exile. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Reading 1 Samuel chapter 21 to chapter 24. Objective: to show how God cared for David all the time that Saul sought his life, because David trusted in him. And they that know thy name will put their trust in thee, for thou, Yahweh, hast not forsaken them that seek thee. Psalms 9 verse 10. Background: David had been anointed as the king of Israel, and his throne would be established when God was ready. David did not seek to take it for himself, but waited on Yahweh. Saul had become so obsessed with killing David that he gathered his army together against him and chased David throughout the region of Judah. David flees from Saul, 1 Samuel 21 to chapter 22 verse 5. In fear of his life, David had to keep moving to avoid Saul and his army. David fled to Nob, a city of the priests, where he felt safe. The priest Abimelech gave him bread and Goliath's sword, but he was seen by Doeg the Edomite, a servant of Saul. Verse 7. David fled to the Philistine camp of Gath, the very hometown of Goliath. Verse 10. David was recognized and immediately realized his mistake. Verse 11 to 12. He made himself out to be a madman, so Achish, the king, threw him out. Verse 13 to 15. David escaped to the cave of Adullam, where he was joined by 400 men. Everyone that was in distress, and everyone that was in debt, and everyone that was discontented, gathered themselves unto him. Chapter 22, verse 2. David became their captain, but they were without David's godly character. On the advice of the prophet Gad, David moved from the cave and hid in the forest of Hareth. Verse 5. Saul destroys Nob. 1 Samuel 22, verses 6 to 23. Saul was consumed with self-pity and accused his servants of conspiring against him. "There is none of you that is sorry for me." Verse 7 to 8. Doeg the Edomite stepped forward with an accusation that Abimelech had helped David. He falsely accused Abimelech of inquiring of God for him. Verse 9 to 10. Abimelech assured Saul that he had no part in a conspiracy with David. Verse 15. But Saul was beyond listening to reason. In a rage he ordered all the priests to be killed. Verse 16. His servants refused to carry out this command, except Doeg. He arose and slew 85 priests, and smote every man, woman, child, and animal of the city. Verse 18 to 19. Only Abiathar the priest escaped and fled to David. Verse 20 to 22. The ungrateful men of Keilah. 1 Samuel 23, verse 1 to 12. News came to David that the Philistines were robbing the people of Keilah in Judah of their newly gathered harvest. He did not act in haste, but inquired of Yahweh, "Shall I go and smite these Philistines?" Verse 2. When David told his men what he intended, they were afraid of adding to their present troubles by taking on the Philistines. Verse 3. So David again prayed for direction, and God assured him, "Go down to Keilah, and I will deliver the Philistine into thine hand." Verse 4. David went with confidence and smote them with a great slaughter, and took their cattle as spoil. Verse 5. Saul heard that David was now at Keilah. To him it was foolish of David to allow himself to be trapped inside a town, for towns have gates and bars. where they could easily be captured. Even Saul convinced himself that God was helping him to corner David and kill him. Verse 7. Again David inquired of Yahweh. He was told that Saul would come to Keilah, and that the men of Keilah would betray him into the hands of Saul. With the dreadful slaughter of the whole population of Nob, Saul was plainly stating his intolerance to anyone who supported David. This made the men of Keilah nervous about Saul's approach. Verse 10 to 12. So David and his men departed from Keilah. Perhaps David would have been justified in feeling angry toward the men of Keilah for their ingratitude. But walking in faith means we must accept the problems of life. What glory is it if, when ye be buffeted for your faults, ye take it patiently? But if, when ye do well and suffer for it, ye take it patiently, this is acceptable with God. 1 Peter 2, verse 20. In the wilderness of Ziph. 1 Samuel chapter 23, verses 13 to 18. Although Saul did not go to Keilah, verse 13, he continued his daily hunt for David, who had fled to the wilderness of Ziph. All Saul's attempts came to nothing because God was protecting his chosen king, verse 14. It would not have been easy for David. By now he had more than 600 men to care for, verse 13. One brief encounter gave David great encouragement. While he was hiding in a forest, Jonathan came to see him, verse 16. How remarkable it was that Saul was searching everywhere for David and never found him, but his trusted friend could. Jonathan's sole purpose was to strengthen his hand in God. Verse 16. They looked to the future, for they both believed the promises of God. Fear not, for the hand of Saul my father shall not find thee. And thou shalt be king over Israel, and I shall be next unto thee. And that also Saul my father knoweth. Verse 17. So the two friends parted, never to see each other again until the resurrection. David wrote Psalms 54 in memory of this incident. Of Jonathan he wrote, Yahweh is with them that uphold my soul. Psalms 54 verse 4. The treacherous men of Ziph. 1 Samuel 23 verses 19 to 28. The men of Ziph were eager to please Saul. They came up to Gibeah especially to tell the king that they knew where David was and offered to deliver him into the king's hand. Verse 20. Saul was grateful. Blessed be ye of Yahweh, he said unto them. But God was not in Saul's thoughts at all. Again in Psalms 54, David's thoughts are recorded. Oppressors seek after my soul. They have not set God before them. Psalms 54 verse 3. He asked them to monitor David's movements and report back when they knew his exact position. Verses 22 to 23. By this time David had moved again to the wilderness of Maon. Verses 24 to 25. On one occasion, David found himself on the opposite side of the same mountain as Saul. Verse 26. Just as Saul's men surrounded David, a messenger appeared with an urgent message for the king. Haste ye and come, for the Philistines have invaded the land. Verse 27. So Saul had to hastily return. Here was the providential hand of God at work. Little did the Philistines know that their invasion at this critical time saved the future king of Israel. God intervened to bring about his purpose. David saw that God's hand had saved him and wrote of his gratitude and praise. God is my helper. I will praise thy name, O Yahweh, for it is good, for he hath delivered me out of all trouble. Psalms 54 verse 7. David spares Saul's life. 1 Samuel 24. When he had dealt with the Philistines, Saul continued hunting for David with the help of 3,000 chosen men out of all Israel. Verse 2. Saul found out where David was and set out after him with his troops. David kept on the move, travelling east from Ziph across to the edge of the Dead Sea to Engedi. Here among the rugged rocks, where the wild goats lived, were many large caves. As Saul and his army approached, David and his band of men hid in one of these huge caves. While they waited anxiously, Saul stepped into the very cave where they were hiding. Verse 3. What a moment! In the eyes of David's men, here was a God-given opportunity to seize his enemy. Verse 4. Saul did not see the men silently watching him from the dark depths of the cave. David crept forward and cut a piece of the robe of the unsuspecting king. Immediately David regretted what he had done. Verse 5. Returning to his men, he said, Yahweh forbid that I should do this thing unto my master, Yahweh's anointed, to stretch forth mine hand against him, seeing he is the anointed of Yahweh. Verses 6 and 7. With these words, David put an end to any suggestion of harming Saul, and they all waited until he left. After Saul had walked away a short distance, David went out and called to him, My lord the king! Amazed, Saul turned around and found David, his enemy, bowing before him. Why, David asked, did the king take notice of men who said, David seeketh thy hurt? Verse 9. David's defence. 1 Samuel 24 verses 10 to 15. David wanted to prove this was false and show the king that he had nothing to fear from him. So he spoke to the king in words of appeal. Yahweh delivered you into my hands in the cave, and you were at my mercy. Verse 10. My men told me to kill you, but I would not, because you are Yahweh's anointed. I have evidence to show that I could have killed you. See, here is part of your robe. Verse 11. This shows I have no evil intentions towards you, even though you want to kill me. I am as harmless to you as a dead dog or a flea. Verse 14. Let Yahweh judge what is happening between us and do what he thinks is right. Verses 12 and 15. Note the warm and beseeching tone of David's words as he addresses Saul, my Lord, my Father. David's words moved Saul deeply, and he responded, Is this thy voice, my son David? Saul wept. Verse 16. Saul's reply to David. 1 Samuel 24 verses 16 to 21. David, you are more righteous than I. You have showed me good when I showed you evil. Verse 17. Yahweh delivered me into your hands, and you did not kill me. If a man finds his enemy, will he let him go well away? Verse 19. I know you will certainly be king, and the kingdom of Israel will be established in your hand. Promise me that you will not cut off my descendants or destroy my name from my father's house. David promised all that Saul wanted, and they departed. Saul to his home, but David and his men went up to the hole. Verse 22. Why did David go back into hiding immediately and not return home as Saul? David knew what man was like, and he did not trust that Saul had really had a change of heart. The rest of Saul's life shows us that he returned to his old feelings of hatred towards David. He had cut himself off from God and allowed pride and jealousy to eat away at his heart. His evil thoughts consumed him. Principle for living: patience and self-control. David's action in the cave of En-Gedi is a wonderful example of patience and self-control. What made David able to resist the temptation to kill Saul? He had the chance to end his life as a fugitive and seize the kingship God had promised him, but his faith prevented him from killing Saul. In the midst of strong temptation and the urging of his company, he had to remind himself that God was in control. Faith made him see things from God's point of view. David's character was upright. He could not further his own ends by foul means. If God promises us something, then we must wait and be patient until he is ready to give it. It is not necessarily a matter of sitting idle, but any action we take must be upright and not break any of God's commands. David has some good advice for us. Rest in Yahweh and wait patiently for him. Psalms 37 verse 7. Paul tells us to be patient in tribulation. Romans 12 verse 12. It is very hard to control ourselves when dealing with mean and spiteful people. We must resolve to honour God, for only then will we be able to control our actions and not do anything rash. It takes years of patient continuance in well-doing to develop a character pleasing to God. Romans 2 verse 7. It takes seconds to destroy the work of a lifetime. Self-control, or temperance in the AV version, is part of the fruit of the Spirit. That is, it is a characteristic of one who has a spiritual mind. Galatians 5 verses 22 to 23. It is a quality of Jesus Christ. Summary. David inquired of Yahweh and was told to go and help the men of Keilah from the Philistines. God revealed to him that the men of Keilah would prove treacherous if given the opportunity. Saul sought David every day, but only his friend Jonathan found him. When the men of Ziph helped Saul find David, God delivered him from the hand of Saul by sending the Philistines just at that moment. When David could have killed Saul at En-Gedi, he did not, trusting that God would give him the kingdom in his due time. These lessons are the words taken from the Christadelphian Sunday School Association Notes, www.cssa.asn.au, used with permission. Email your questions to readthebible2@gmail.com, and we look forward to you listening to the next lesson, which will be called The Death of Saul.